Welcome back once again with another TCOS update, this time for the evening, 10:30 p.m. UTC of January the 21st. It's the first TCOS update since the National Hurricane Center took on board the area of interest in the Eastern Pacific. If you missed that, they briefly had a 40% on that, which I was quite baffled at. I would have kept it at 10% all of the way. They eventually brought it back down to 10%, and I think now it's at a solid 0. We'll look at that, probably only briefly, because it's had its opportunity and it is now gone. So let's now look at what other shenanigans are going on in the early season in the Northern Hemisphere before moving on to our Southern Hemisphere action. And of course, updating TCOS as we go. It's been 2 days since the last one, so obviously there's a lot to catch up on. So the information you see at the top there, if you're new to this, is the old info, and we update it gradually as we go through this discussion, whilst I analyse in real time what's going on around the world, and what is a threat and what isn't. Else we look at the GFS model. So this is the 18Z run. Looking at the Atlantic, first of all, you've got a fairly powerful, not that powerful by the grand scheme of things, but decent looking extratropical cyclone. And then out of some doldrums here, there is a little something that comes up on the GFS run, 78 hours, there it is. And actually, that does look pretty good. Phase diagrams are on board with that being potentially a tropical cyclone. Now, before we get all into tizzy about it though, we just saw what happened in the Eastern Pacific. Yes, it does have some circulation there. It does have a bit of convection. Does it lose its front? Eventually it does, but like with the Eastern Pacific, it loses it before it can detach properly. That is just one GFS scenario, of course. Let's see if we could possibly look at the ensembles. Is there much support? More than I thought there would be, actually. There is a little group of members supporting that, which is very interesting to see. So, after what we've just seen in the Eastern Pacific, and bearing in mind we are in January, it's hard to place this, but I do think that has a chance. And I'm a bit worried about whether to actually list it or not because of the risk of the quite serious risk of getting fingers burned when that doesn't form. But from what I can see, there is nothing different to that than what we saw in the Eastern Pacific, and by that I feel obliged to give it a 10%, which I'm afraid is going to make everyone really angry in Atlantic waters, but by the same rules that I apply to the Eastern Pacific that National Hurricane Center went with 40% with, I've got to give that a 10%. So I'm just inputting the data now, and we are marking the Atlantic system, as much as I hate to, because it is not the cringiest basin in the world, but it has its cringiest followers, let's say. So that is L1, and that would be located at 22 north, 31 west. Let's look at other models on that. Is there any support? ECMWF does have a little something. It does. What about the CMC? I know it's got a reputation, but there it is as well, a bit further north. Less chance with that. The NavGem. There it is again. Oh boy. The Icon. There it is again, although not very convincing on the Icon at all. So it does have model support, ensemble member support, phase diagram support, arguably more support than the EastPac system had, but still only a 10%, because it is January in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's ludicrous to think that we would get, I know it's happened before, but ludicrous to think that we might see a system dropping out of that, but we've got to react onto what we see, and that does have a non-zero chance, although it is a very low one. 2 points. The Eastern Pacific then, let's see what it's throwing out right now. So the system that we were watching is off the screen. Elsewhere in the basin, you'll be pleased to know, sweet nothing. The Central Pacific then, showing that system now, it's losing its momentum. Actually, it isn't. Look at that. It re-strengthens at 48 hours on the GFS run. I really hope that doesn't show there's still chance for it. Let's check the simulated satellite. It can't go on, but I will keep it personally at a 10%. And that is the one that is now at 23 north, 141 west. A 10% chance, in my book, of seeing Hone. Don't say that too loudly. I'll get into trouble. 30 and 1006 right now, and that is just about the measure of that. G1. Western Pacific then. What have we got here? We were monitoring the Philippine area for a low pressure system, and in fact there it is going through the islands, very weak. I don't really feel I have the heart to give that any designation, but I'm not sure because we had it. That's J1. I guess it looks, it's doing a little bit there at the 18-hour mark. So it's a toss-up really. 7 north, 134 east. We'll keep it on 10%. Not sure it's really worth the mention, but we'll leave it like that for now. 19 points because the Philippines are involved. The Indian Ocean then, the most promising system in terms of things that might form right now is down here in the southwest Indian Ocean. The Meteo France are monitoring it closely as well, and you could see a 995 millibar tropical storm landfall there in Madagascar in as little as 30 hours. It could be one that I wouldn't say pop up suddenly, but one that gets its act together suddenly, because obviously it's got the surface low already. It does exist, but I'm not sure what it's actually doing. I'm just trying to check some satellite right now to ascertain what it's up to just in the last few hours. Been a little bit away from the game recently. Just looking over here on this imagery, it's a big mess, but I think it actually is coming together. Just got to check a little animation here. Regrettably, I can't show this at the same time. Yeah, that is looking decent. And it's obviously, well, not obvious because you can't see it, but on the satellite, it's the southwestern area there that's becoming dominant. The northeastern one is still there as well. I can see that. It's going to have to pick that one. Well, actually, I think it's the northeast one that actually becomes dominant on the model. I'm not sure that's what's happening in real life. Nonetheless, that system right now is currently observable. We'll go for the center point between those two lows, 15 south, 54 east. So that's F1. It's got a good chance. I would give it, it's a tough one. It's at least 70%. Given what happens later on, quite a bit of uncertainty actually, with several cyclones possible. We'll go with just the 70, which is still high. So 70%. I've lost my high chance color, and I should be selecting that instead of, god damn it, I've got to find my high chance color now. Well, this is a comedy of errors, although this isn't particularly official, so don't suppose it matters very much. There's the 70%, and currently, I mean, it says there, I don't really know what it says, so I'll have to, let's just check, see if we have ASCAT right now to show us. And again, something that you won't be able to see, it's just something I'm looking up on my monitor. There has been a recent ASCAT pass, and it has got, it's only a partial pass, so not a full pass, and I'm not sure how helpful this is. It's certainly showing that the southwestern area, which is where it looks good, doesn't have a centre at all. Can't see the northeastern area, but it's got 30 knot winds, that's for sure, from ASCAT. So we can give it 30 knots, which is 35 miles per hour, and a pressure of probably 1004. So that's F1 with a decent chance of formation. Taking that landfall in Madagascar in 30 hours, which isn't very long, especially for early warning if it does become something, and they can intensify quite rapidly sometimes off the coast there. We'd anticipate a significant, well, a tropical storm landfall. Then after that, maybe a little bit stronger off the coast of Mozambique. This TCOS update is going to take a while because you can see the other systems developing there as well that we're going to have to take note to. So that gives F1 19 points, right? Just checking that we've not got anything there that we should be getting rid of. No. Okay, so besides that, what happens here? Well, it looks like it leaves behind some energy on the eastern side of Madagascar, and it decides to form into another tropical cyclone, which is great. And look what it does. That is absolutely a ludicrous track and intensity, getting down to 920s on the GFS. Highly doubt that. Let's see what happens with the ensemble members and see how much support there is for that. Only about half of the ensemble supporting it, so naturally that would half my normal chances that I would give it, and I would probably, with a model signal as strong as that, give it a 40, but for the time being we'll go with a 20 as obviously halving it. Where have we gone? Here we are, and that is another new system, M1. Gonna run out of room eventually on my slides, but we've got this one, M1. I think it's quite ludicrous, the forecast for it on that GFS model, but again, a 20%, 16 south, 51 east, 20% future tropical cyclone. If it did come to pass, what islands would it affect? Almost right up to Agalega there. But otherwise, not really affecting anyone, so it wouldn't get that many points. Just plotting that in now. It would get quite a few because of the forecast, but there we go, 14 points. And now we've got that third system over there as well. Now that comes from pretty much the equator really, and down it goes. Should stay out to sea, but obviously a sign that we've got an active phase coming in. That one's got much more support, although there is another low pressure system there that could take it too, so further complications there. But most of the ensembles had it coming from the eastern low, which is what we'll be tagging as N1. And that's our next system that's coming into play. As I say, should be wholly out to sea. Whether it comes from that eastern low or the western one remains to be seen. That is usually the question when it comes to systems in that area, to be honest. And its formation area would be 7 south, 90 degrees east. So if it books its ideas up quickly, it could get an Australian name. And chances on that, we'll give that a 30%. And its TCOS score wouldn't be very high. We are probably looking at a 5. Let's check the Australian region after all of that. Here we are. You may remember previously models were talking about all sorts of things for the Western Australian coast. Now on the GFS, just a big mess. And I don't really feel like plotting anything there, really. So I'm taking off H1, which is what we initially had. Getting rid of that. And now to the Southwest Pacific, which is where we had the last action. Will there be more? There's a system that develops late on in the run, too far out for us. And the Southeast Pacific, non-tropical lows dominating the scene. And the funny areas, the South Atlantic, because you never know when silliness will strike, although it could happen in the North Atlantic next, as we saw earlier. My God. And still the East Pacific is still on after that latest GFS model run, which is just ridiculous. I doubt it. Mediterranean, very dead, and that's exactly how we like to see it. So that's the latest TCOS. Somehow we are still unclassified. I don't know how many days in a row that is now. Getting the demand score, and that will drop it just a tad. I'm not sure which one's dropped, if any, there. And the date is the 21st. And that is where we're at right now on TCOS. 19 points is how it is. On Monday, TCOS will be moving to my personal channel on YouTube. Search Nathan Foy, which is obviously my name, and you'll find me on YouTube, hopefully, quite easily. I think I'm fairly recognizable compared to others. So you won't make any mistake when you're searching for my account, that is. And then you will find TCOS updates will be delivered there, hopefully in a timely manner. It'll probably allow me to be a bit more silly as well, because I'm sure everyone's dying to see that. But that is our TCOS update for tonight on Force 13 Xtra. Let's see if we had any questions that came in during the stream, because I will go for it and take some questions if anyone has any. Just looking through, I don't think there's anything tonight. There was just that one time 2 days ago or whatever when quite a few questions came in on one stream for some reason. But there we go, that is our TCOS for tonight. Have a great night, and I'm sure I'll be back again